Alone in the darkness, stillness all around. I'm awoken from my sleep with a shofar-like sound emerging from my phone, eerie and piercing, starting low and getting higher. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. Then a voice from above, Orchim Yekarim, Nishme'a Azaka, Ana Geshu B'mehirut Uveseder, Lemiklat Hamalon O Le'ezor Hamugan Hakarov Bioter. Dear guests, a siren has sounded. Please proceed quickly and calmly to the hotel's bomb shelter or the nearest protected area. It is 5 a.m., my head sunken heavily into the pillow of my Dan Panorama of Jerusalem bed, my eyes struggling against the weight of sleep after the long, full day on the JNF educator's mission. Boker Tov, Israel. I grab my shorts, then I spot the kippah on my nightstand and instinctively grab it, along with my room key and my phone. Wait, sandals. Do I risk one more minute to find them? Incredibly, I decided yes. And then, for some inexplicable reason, I even grabbed my sunglasses. Sunglasses for a bomb shelter. Moments later, I reach two heavy metal doors that lead into a long room with no windows and thick concrete walls. These walls give a window into the enemies who sought to destroy us. I asked myself, what could be so devastating, and who could hate us so much as to send something so powerful that requires thick concrete walls to protect us? And then I looked inside the walls. I remember looking around and seeing women clinging to their hotel robes, some with towels still wrapped around wet hair, men in mismatched pajamas, and all of us keeping our mouths closed, protecting everyone from our morning breath. And another question appeared in my head. What could be more worthy of protecting than this hodgepodge of secular and religious, Jewish and non-Jewish, dark and light-skinned, nervous guests and courageous workers conveying calm, young and old, those who had just either rolled out of bed and those who had just ran out of the shower? What could be more worth of protecting from a missile launched by the Houthis? We all silently prayed for Iron Dome to intercept it. One veteran of 3 weeks of sirens even quipped, "May the Houthis keep launching missiles like Shaquille O'Neal shoots free throws and miss." An experience that took less than 5 minutes was a definitive moment of my trip this past summer on my sabbatical. I would argue that it is representative of the central shared experience by everyone in this room and global Jewry, the experience of dealing with threats and seeking shelter. And on this Rosh Hashanah morning, I want to demonstrate this shared journey of ours and then ask the question, how can it shape our character? Take a moment and consider the threats and shelters that you experience. Since the atrocities of October 7th, each of us have searched for a place of safety, not only for our bodies, but for our souls, not only for our lives, but for our truth. We have sought shelter from existential threats. We have witnessed and too often endured the ease with which our lives can be taken through assassinations. And as a people, we continue to live beneath the looming shadow of annihilation, a shadow cast most vividly by the nuclear ambitions of Iran. We have sought shelter also from a physical threat, not only in the land of Israel, where rockets can pierce the sky, but also in the streets of Europe, in the campuses of America. And yes, who among us does not walk with heightened vigilance when we walk through the streets of our city? Anti-Semitism has crept out of the dark corners and now parades in places where it was once unthinkable. It is emboldened and shameless. And we have sought shelter also from the spiritual threat, the lies, the distortions, the venom that pours from the endless stream of social media, a flood of voices that seek not to only wound the Jewish people, but to strip us of our narrative, our history, our very truth. And yet, in these frightening times when we often feel under attack, alone and separate, it is easy to forget the shelters we do have. Here are three, just to name a few. As Jews in America, we have long experienced this land as a shelter. George Washington's famous letter to the Jewish community of Newport proclaimed, "It is now no more that toleration is spoken of, as if it were the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance." Think about his words. We are no longer merely tolerated, always one step away from exile or violence, but now we are embraced as equal citizens. And this is done happily, besimcha, not for favors or convenience, but happily. Bigotry has no sanction, persecution no assistance. Washington's letter is not simply a letter, it is much more. It is a passport, a sacred guarantee, granting us the right to live in this country with standing and protection. And I hold this passport high, waving it in the face of those who dare to put on masks, to shout us down, to threaten us, especially on the university campuses where we entrust our children. This letter proclaims we are not strangers here, not outsiders to be merely tolerated. No, we are equals in this nation, woven into its very fabric, deserving of respect, dignity, and safety. If ever I question the sustainability of Washington's letter, I think of the stories from the shtetl where my family came from, Sokolivka. As the story is told, one day the shtetl was attacked by an angry mob. They took captives. The townspeople went to the local authorities, pleading for help, begging for protection, hoping that justice would prevail. But instead of saving the captives, the authorities permitted them to be murdered, their bodies thrown into the river. That was life in the old country, as we were left vulnerable, unprotected, unseen. And I contrast that with my life today, here in America, as one of the rabbis at Congregation Beth. How different it feels when I look out at our gates and see our local police department not as a threat, but as protectors. Not only in times of danger, but even in ordinary moments, they stop by during their breaks to check in, to make sure their Jewish community is safe. I recall with Rabbi Kornberg the tragic day of the Poway synagogue shooting. The first call that came to us was from our local police department, and their words were simple, human, sheltering. Are you okay? Yes, I wish we did not need to wave Washington's passport to remind our country of her promise. Yet on this Rosh Hashanah, it's worth finding the grace to see the many in our country who do see us, care for us, and approach us not with indifference or hatred, but with love and concern. Yes, our country is still a shelter. As Jews, we have another shelter, Shabbat. I first encountered Shabbat around the Friday night table of my grandparents' home. Since then, Friday night has been a central part of my journey. When I think of every Friday night dinner I've ever had, I picture an eternal campfire. Gathered around it is a circle of faces who reflect the glow of the flame. People who matter the most to me, some who are still here, and some who are no longer living. We enjoy each other's presence while behind us the world's noise slips into the dark, out of sight and out of mind. Lately, Shabbat has become a refuge from the loud, restless world of social media. For 24 hours, I am freed from TikToks, Facebook posts, and X feeds. What remains is this: you, my community, gathered on Saturday morning to study Torah, to listen, and to turn those teachings into the work of our lives. In that holy pause, we are reminded who we are, who we love, and who we are called to be. Israel is also a shelter. Time and again, when friends and family return from visiting, I hear the same words, spoken with a kind of exhale, with a tone of deep relief. It just felt so good to be in the land of Israel. What they describe is not only joy, but freedom. The freedom to let our metaphorical Jewish hair down. In Israel, we can wear a kippah or a Magen David not as a statement to be defended, not as a choice that puts us at risk, but simply as an expression of who we are. In Israel, we breathe differently. We walk differently. In Israel, you don't have to explain. You simply are. That is its shelter. A shelter not only of concrete walls, like the ones I encountered that morning in the Dan Panorama, but also an invisible one that offers us the rare gift of being at home in our Jewishness, fully, freely, without apology. How then does finding shelter shape our character? How does it influence the type of people we strive to become? Our history provides us guidance. Long before we reached the shores of the United States or landed in Ben Gurion Airport, finding shelter was woven into the stories of our people. Sitting in our shelters, how have they informed us how to live? Most of us know the story of Noah. Evil surrounds him. And what does he do? He built a ship, a floating shelter. He kept only a select few with him, and then he waited for all of the evil in the world to be destroyed, a destruction so great that it swept the entire world away in its wake. Sitting in our shelters, how many of us are tempted to follow Noah's path, to lock the doors, to shut ourselves in, to wait for the storm to end? For me, the most powerful story of shelter is that of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Nearly 2,000 years ago, fleeing from Roman persecution, he hid away in a cave. And what did he do there? He turned that shelter into a sanctuary of study. He reflected, he dreamed, and when he finally emerged, he brought forth the Zohar, the great work of Jewish mysticism, a treasure of light born out of darkness. His story teaches us this: our shelters are not only places of hiding, they can become places of transformation. They can be spaces where wisdom is refined and where vision is born. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai asks us, when you survive the storm, what truths, what Torah, what light will we carry out with us when we step back into the world? Sitting in your shelter, what is the truth you wish to share when you step back into the world? There is a central debate about what that truth should be. Some of you have heard of the debate between the rabbis Hillel and Shammai, as they are asked by someone to explain Judaism on one foot. Shammai's response: beat him away with a stick. In your shelter, have you felt like Shammai? It's easy to feel like Shammai when we are asked, explain to me why Israel is not a genocidal state in one quick post. We often understand standing on one foot as if we are asked to do something quickly. But what if it is actually the act of being unbalanced, standing on one foot, trying to maintain yourself while you are asked to simplify the complexity of your faith, your people, and our homeland. And according to Shammai, how do we respond to those threats? By defending ourselves. Like the concrete walls of the bunker, Shammai wants to emerge from the shelter, upholding the boundaries of our people to keep us safe. And how does Hillel answer the question? He states, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. The rest is commentary. Now go out and study." Whereas Shammai reflects on the person who is targeting him, Hillel focuses on the people he is seeking to protect. And in his answer, we see he is protecting a people who are kind and ethical people who allow our empathy to guide us. Whose Torah do you follow then, Hillel or Shammai? This tension appears again in the Talmud. In Beitzah 32b, we learn what it truly means to be a descendant of Abraham. The Talmud teaches plainly, to be a Jew is to be compassionate. In other words, if one is not compassionate, one cannot claim the inheritance of Abraham. It is a striking standard. The text pushes us beyond the safety of our own shelters, urging us to extend ourselves towards others in need. And yet, we must hold this alongside another teaching, a sobering warning from Midrash Tanchuma. One who shows, Midrash Tanchuma teaches, one who shows compassion to the cruel will, in the end, become cruel to the compassionate. What is the Torah you are carrying? Are you compassionate or are you a protector? Lastly, we see this debate in two of the central visions for the modern Jewish state of Israel. One carried by Max Nordau and the other by Asher Tzvi Ginsburg, Achad Ha'am. Imagine the late 1800s, a crowded hall in Basel, Switzerland, where the early Zionist Congress is gathering. The air is thick with urgency, with hope, and with fear. Two men rise, each with a vision for the Jewish future. First comes Max Nordau, physician, critic, firebrand. He looks out at the delegates and says, "Time is running out. Anti-Semitism is not a passing storm. It is the air our people breathe. We are not safe, not in Russia, not in France, not anywhere. If we do not build a homeland now, our people will perish. Israel must be our shelter, a shelter that makes us strong again, a place where we can walk upright, defend ourselves, live as free human beings. In exile, we have become weary, stooped, too dependent on the tolerance of others. In our own land, we will be reborn, strong, proud, muscular Jews once again." Then rises Achad Ha'am, quiet, thoughtful, with eyes that seem to look not only at the delegates, but beyond them into the centuries to come. He shakes his head gently and says, "My friend Nordau is right. We need renewal. But if Israel is only a bunker, a fortress of safety, it will not be enough. Most Jews will remain in the diaspora. They will still need something to nourish their souls. What we must build is not only a refuge for the body, but a center for the spirit. A land where Hebrew will live once again, where Torah and Jewish creativity will flourish, where a culture of light and wisdom will radiate out to Jews everywhere. Without that, survival alone will be empty." The hall buzzes. The delegates argue. Who is right? Nordau with his urgency for physical safety, or Ahad Ha'am with his dream of spiritual renewal? Whose pathway speaks to you? Max Nordau or Ahad Ha'am? I would like to suggest a way to hold both visions together. Has anyone ever heard of Dr. Howard Marcus? Howard Marcus was born in Germany in 1909. He trained as a dentist, but when the Nazis rose to power, life quickly became impossible. In 1933, Nazi soldiers stood at the door of his office, and after that, no patients came. He understood immediately a Jew has no future in Germany. He fled to Naples, but when Mussolini aligned with Hitler, danger returned. Desperate, he turned to the American Consul General, a man who had once been his patient, and pleaded, "I am a Jew. I have nowhere else to go. Will you shelter me on your shores?" Moved with compassion, the consul falsified visa papers and gave him the chance to immigrate to America in 1939. In the United States, Marcus rebuilt his life. He married Lottie, his partner, for more than 60 years, and together they lived privately and modestly, ending up actually here in San Diego. Lottie, who had worked on Wall Street, invested their savings with a then little-known broker named, some of you may have heard of him, Warren Buffett. By the end of their lives, they had amassed more than $500 million. And what did Howard, once a man begging simply for shelter, do with that fortune? What do you think he would do? What was his Torah? Who did he follow? Achad Ha'am or Nordau? Shammai or Hillel? Howard and Lottie Marcus, in the end, gave all of their wealth away. They gave it to Ben-Gurion University, $500 million to fund water research. Why water? Because Israel, born in the desert, needed to be self-reliant to protect itself from her enemies and turn necessity into innovation. Out of scarcity, Israelis developed drip irrigation, desalination, and conservation technologies that today allow Israel to have water security. And here is the amazing thing we all know. Israel did not stop there. Israel then shared this gift with the entire world. This, my friends, is how the contrasting visions of Nordau and Achad Ha'am come together. Shelter is not only for survival, though survival is essential. Shelter must also lead to renewal, to wisdom, to generosity. It is how the visions of Shammai and Hillel are intertwined. Shammai was right. We must always think of our safety. But Hillel was also right. Our work does not end there. It ends when we take what we have learned in our shelters and share it for the betterment of all humanity. Lastly, Howard and Lottie Marcus, they again live private lives, and we can understand why, as it would be fitting for them to live with suspicion, struggling to trust a world that had been evil to them and our people. And yet, at the very end, what was their message? They chose compassion, generosity, and hope. They remind us that fear must never sever us from our true calling, to be a people of kindness, a people that are giving. Our tradition does not ask us to choose one or the other. It asks us to live in the tension and to draw strength from both, to emerge from shelter not only alive but generous, not only secure but transformative, to see shelter as a womb, a sacred space from which we are reborn, renewed, and sent forth to bless the lives of others. At the end of the first exile, the Jewish people began to emerge out of the shelter of Babylon. And a prophet climbed the top of a mountain, looked at Zion, and spoke these words to his people, words that still ring true today. Kumi, Uri, arise and shine, for your light has come. Darkness may cover the earth. Thick clouds may surround the peoples of this world. But upon you the Lord will shine, and nations shall walk by your light. It is Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of a new year. A new day rises. May we have the courage to heed its call. Shana Tova.